Hey everyone, if you're prepping for your CBSE Class 10 Biology Board exams and feeling, a little overwhelmed by the whole life processes chapter, take a deep breath. We are going to figure this out together. Today we're diving into a high-yield masterclass on the top 6 most repeated exam questions from the last 10 years of source papers. Let's jump right in.
But before we get into the heavy microscopic science, let's anchor our brains for a second. What exactly is a life process? Well, examiners absolutely love to test your foundational understanding before anything else. To lock this into your short-term memory, I want you to remember this really simple mnemonic from our sources, MRSGREN. That stands for movement, respiration, sensitivity, growth, reproduction, excretion, and nutrition. Every living thing on Earth literally relies on these 7 pillars. And today, we're going to master the 4 most highly tested ones.
Okay, so here is our roadmap for this session. First up, nutrition. Second, respiration. Third, human transport. Fourth, plant transport. Fifth, excretion. And finally, the interconnected machine. All right, let's get into it. Section 1, nutrition, the mechanism of photosynthesis.
I want you to visualize zooming way down into a microscopic cross-section of a green leaf. Our very first major question asks you to describe the step-by-step mechanism of photosynthesis. And listen closely, because examiners love testing the exact raw materials here, as well as the specific function of chlorophyll. This is exactly where you score your marks.
So the absolutely crucial point is breaking this whole thing down into a clear sequence. First up, we have the light reaction. Picture the chloroplasts in the leaf's palisade cells soaking up sunlight and using it to produce this glowing burst of ATP energy. Next, shift your focus to the stomata, those tiny pores on the underside of the leaf. That ATP is used to actively transport potassium ions straight into the guard cells. This converts starch to malate, which lowers the water potential and draws water in by osmosis. Because of all that water, the guard cells swell up, they bend, and boom, they pop that stomatal pore wide open. Finally, with the pore open, carbon dioxide rushes in for the dark reaction, where it's actually converted into food. Raw materials in, energy out. It's just brilliant.
Moving right along. Section 2, respiration, breakdown of glucose pathways. Now let's shift gears. We've talked about making the food, right? Now imagine zooming straight into a cell's cytoplasm and mitochondria to see how living things actually unlock the energy inside that food. Our second high-yield question is a classic. Compare aerobic and anaerobic respiration. To nail this, you absolutely need to know the specific locations and the energy math.
Let's break down that math. On the one side, we have aerobic respiration, meaning with oxygen. This takes place in the mitochondria and gives us a massive burst of roughly 38 ATP molecules per single glucose molecule, leaving behind just some clean carbon dioxide and water. Now, contrast that with the other side, anaerobic respiration, without oxygen. This only happens in the cytoplasm and yields a measly 2 ATP. And instead of clean water, it produces a byproduct, either lactic acid, like in your tired muscles after a hard workout, or ethanol in yeast. 38 versus 2. That right there is the core difference board examiners are hunting for.
All right, bringing the energy up. Section 3, transportation in humans, the pumping heart.
So, question 3 asks us to explain the double circulation of blood in humans. Honestly, mastering this concept is non-negotiable if you want high marks. It's all about understanding exactly how oxygenated and deoxygenated blood are kept strictly separated.
Try to visualize this dynamic flow. First, picture the blue flow. The right side of the heart pumps deoxygenated blood out to the lungs to grab oxygen. We call this the pulmonary loop. Then it cycles back to the heart. Now, visualize the vibrant red flow. The left side of the heart takes that freshly oxygenated red blood and forcefully surges it out to the rest of the body, and that's the systemic loop. You've got 2 completely distinct loops happening simultaneously, completely preventing the mixing of blood. And that, my friends, is double circulation.
Let's head back to the forest. Section 4, transportation in plants, xylem and phloem. Imagine a high-tech, silent water show happening right inside a tree trunk. Question 4 asks you to differentiate between xylem and phloem transport mechanisms. Now, remember, examiners are specifically looking for directional keywords here, and they want to know the energy source used for moving those materials.
Let's contrast these 2 incredible biological tubes side by side. Think about the xylem. It carries water and minerals, and it only goes up, so it's strictly unidirectional. It's driven by this passive vacuum called transpiration pull, which happens as water evaporates from the leaves. Now flip over to the phloem. This tube carries sugary food. It travels both up and down, so it's bidirectional. Because the plant actually needs to actively push this food from the source to the sink, it requires real energy. This process is called translocation, and it uses that glowing ATP energy we talked about earlier to get the very heavy job done.
Getting down to the final system, Section 5, Excretion, the nephron structure.
We are zooming deep into the human kidney now to find our microscopic functional units. Our fifth question: explain the structure and step-by-step function of a nephron. Now, I know this is arguably the most complex diagram you need to draw, but don't panic. We are going to break it down into 3 simple, highly scoreable steps.
Picture this architecture in your mind. At the very top, you have this tiny cup-like structure called the Bowman's capsule. Sitting right inside it is a tightly coiled network of capillaries. That's your glomerulus. Blood enters here under extremely high pressure to kick off the filtration process. From there, the fluid travels down through the twisting proximal convoluted tubule, dips all the way down into the long U-shaped loop of Henle, and comes back up to the distal tubule before finally hitting the collecting duct. So how does it actually function? Picture glowing fluid streams outlining 3 specific steps. Step 1 is glomerular ultrafiltration. Pressure literally forces water and small solutes out of the blood in the glomerulus and straight into the Bowman's capsule. Step 2 is tubular reabsorption. As that filtrate travels through the tubule and the loop of Henle, your body does something really smart. It actively reabsorbs the good stuff back into the bloodstream, vital things like glucose and water. Finally, step 3 is tubular secretion. Any remaining toxins, excess ions, and urea are actively secreted into the tubule to form the final waste product, urine. Ultrafiltration, reabsorption, secretion. Boom, full marks.
And here we are at the end. Section 6, Summary, the Interconnected Body.
Let's take a quick breath and zoom all the way out for our finale. Let's look at how all these microscopic processes build into an epic journey of energy for a macroorganism. First, nutrition provides the raw fuel. We take in the food. Next, transportation takes over. The blood picks up those nutrients and pairs them with oxygen from our lungs. Then it delivers them straight to our cells where respiration happens. The cells burn that fuel to release the ATP energy we need to walk, talk, and think. Finally, the byproduct of all that burning is waste, which is carried away and removed by excretion in the kidneys. It's digestion feeding the blood feeding the cells burning the fuel, and the kidneys taking out the trash. A perfect, continuous cycle.
I want to leave you with a provocative thought here. If just one of these microscopic processes fails, like if the stomata don't open, if the heart's loops mix, or if the nephron stops filtering, how long until the entire machine shuts down? You see, these aren't just boring textbook chapters you have to memorize. They are the fragile, perfectly balanced, interconnected systems that are literally keeping you alive right now. Master these concepts, and you won't just ace your exam, you'll genuinely understand the machinery of life itself. Good luck studying, and thanks so much for joining me for this masterclass.